Hi, in this video I'm going to do my best to do this as one-handed because of the awkward nature of the position I'm in, and this is the only central heating valve which is doing this at the moment on my system, and I thought I would address this rather than replacing the valve. To buy a new valve probably costs about £5, and to actually do the work to fix it would be probably about 5 minutes. But I don't want to do that. What I want to do is just clean this valve up. Now, one of the things I do on a regular basis is to, at the end of the heating season, is always to turn these all the way down and pull it back. This is the lockshield side, and usually you would leave these alone. But I like to be able to make sure that all my valves are in working condition. So if there is any emergencies, I know that that isn't going to be something that's going to catch me out when I least expect it. So if you look at this, you'll notice that the bottom part is like a lighter green than the top part. And that's because this thing, which is the head, which is a wheel head, it's not a normal lockshield head because I just don't have the lockshield heads on these. But essentially it's being used as a lockshield, a balancing valve. But this covers that and stops the moisture escaping as quickly, so it's darker at the top. If I leave this off for long enough, you'll notice that it will start getting light green. So the leak is more a moisture as opposed to like a drip type leak. So it's oozing out, but you're not going to see any great exchange because this is a pressurized system. You're not going to see any changes. It's just far too slow. But when I wind these up and wind these down, the shaft goes up and down into a packing gland, and because it's like this where it's corroded, that's going to slowly etch away at the packing gland. Now normally you just replace these. There's no messing about with that, but I just find it interesting that just to take this apart and see what's actually makes up one of these glands, because I realise I've got two types of these glands. There's this with the packing box and a packing nut, and another one that doesn't have the packing nut, and none of those leak. And I do have 3 others of this type, and this is the only one that actually leaks. So first thing I've done is you turn off your central heating boiler. I've then, in my particular case, I've got a zone valve, and I've isolated the zone. On the other side of all the radiators on the zone, I turn these to zeros, essentially. So the expansion vessel is isolated, and also you have the left and right hand side of the central heating is also isolated. So the idea is to stop the transition, any possible transition of air that goes between these. So the next thing to do is to bleed the air, and it's this type of central heating radiator where you've got a built-in bleed valve. And I'll try and do this all one-handed, so this might be a bit awkward. And I've got this type of arrangement here, which means that I should be able to just bleed this if it needs it. Let's see. Ah, dear. Oh dear, that's a bit tight. No, it doesn't need it. You can hear that. Now this radiator is the one that picks up all the air. Generally, you'll tend to find that you have one radiator. In this particular case, you can see that the water's in there, and it's crystal clear by the looks of it. So let me just dry that quickly, and I'll put that cap back on. Right, I don't need to worry about the rest because this is a live system at the moment. It hasn't been drained at all, as you can see. And this I want to take off, so I'm not going to use an adjustable spanner, you know, this sort of thing, because it's brass, and you can see that there's two parts to this. I'm going to take this off with a socket like this. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just put this around the base here, and the reason for that is I just want a preferential route for any water that comes out of this to fall into this tray, this container that I have here. And but hopefully I'm not going to get too much. Now let's see if I can do this. This is a 16mm deep socket on there, and let's see if I can do this all one-handed. I haven't tried this, so that you're going to be seeing this. I might have to drop the camera to do this with two hands. Now I'm turning against the radiator, not against the pipe, so I don't need to support the pipe or the valve. Let's see. Ah dear. I think this will be a two-handed job. Ah, nope, I managed to do that. And I will undo this. So you can see, unfortunately, I'm not really showing in its best light. So there it is. That's the valve that goes in there. It's quite a tiny valve, and I'm surprised. I didn't think. Oh, it is. It's a metal to metal, so you can't reseat this. Now, usually, just as a keeper, I would put something in there. Let's see if this fits. No, it doesn't fit. So that hole is too small for this to go into. So what I'm going to do is, all I'm trying to do is just stop any air mediation in this thing, and as you can see, the whole thing is completely locked anyway, so there's no movement of water. But I'm just going to drop this thing in, which is just a piece of pipe and an end piece like that. But you can put, you know, a bit of plastic in or anything like that. All it is just to stop the air moving. As you can see, it's not even properly in there. Just goes. It's enough to stop any easy movement of air whilst I clean this thing up. Okay, so I'll now go onto the bench and we'll take this apart and clean it. Let's just take a quick look at the makeup of it. It's a metal to metal seat with a conical seat, you can see. So this part is in the central heating system. The bottom part here and the top part, you can see, are actually on the same thread. So it's using the thread of the actual body itself as a run. This is a packing nut, and in there would be packing material. So it looks like this is just a straight shaft going through. So let's see if I take it apart. So there's no rubber on this at all, and it looks like if there were to be any, it would have been here. But in this particular case, there's nothing. So there's nothing to sort of just go faulty. This is going to be interesting, isn't it? So I'm going to have to try and find a way to. Let's see if I can just do it by brute force. No, I can't. I'm just going to have to get another spanner. Right, okay, this is the only spanner I could find sufficiently small, because it needs to be quite narrow, to actually fit in this, to allow me to then undo this. So look at the state of that. Okay, let's try this. That undoes this. And I imagine that this will just push through now. Actually, let's see if I can. If I push this back, will it take the top? No, it's not going to. So okay, that's taken this off. So that's the top. This is the packing nut. The packing's in there. I'm not going to take it out. You can see that obviously there's a bit of deterioration there. I'm going to put those all in here. And just put some acid on that. This is just white vinegar. just enough to cover it, and a little bit of water, and then we'll go at it and see if we can remove this green. It should come off quite quickly, I'd imagine. You can see this part doesn't seem to get a lot of water in there. Get something. So this is a sponge with a non-abrasive side, so I'm going to just, so this is kind of rough but not scratchy, so I just want to see if I can speed up the removal of debris on this. You can see that where the corrosion has picked up. Let's see if I can. So the outside really is just it's kind of just an aesthetic look. Doesn't do anything, but you know, it's nice to see things that are bright and sharp. But the inside here, that actually goes into this thing here, which is the packing gland, and then this squashes down on the packing gland. So it's important that this has a nice easy route, and I can feel that this is quite gritty, so it is quite corroded. Now, one of the things about packing glands and that, some of them do seem to be like self-healing. So they'll leak and then they'll just stop leaking all by themselves. Some of them you have to tighten the packing top part up, but even the ones that self-heal, you can only use it so many times before it won't self-heal, and then it will just constantly leak. So I want to just remove this corrosion here. I'm going to use something a little bit more abrasive. So again, this is something that's just a tiny bit more abrasive, and I want to be very careful not to change the size of this to any great extent. It's better to, if you can, is to take this off with just acid. But I can feel that this isn't gonna, it's not gonna come off easily. So you can see that. Let's just drop in there. It's not horribly corroded, but I don't think this is a 5-minute job either. That is worse than I thought it was, actually. So I don't want to change the diameter of this from one end to the other. It needs to be all pretty much the same size. I can feel there's grittiness to it, and I can hear this. And there's an inhibitor in the central heating system, so yeah, I'm kind of surprised. Although I haven't put the inhibitor in there for a few years now, so maybe this is trying to tell me something. So the really important part on this is the packing material there and the shaft. The rest of it really is just, you know, it's not really going to affect anything, so this should just slide in, which it does there. You can see it just gets caught here, which is where the stuff is leaked out and then corroded in. So it should be bright and shiny. You can see it gets stuck. So if I push that there, it's nice and smooth, but here it gets stuck. And that basically is just rubbing. So like a lot of things, if you just leave it alone, it probably would be, you know, it'll work fine, but, you know, I know that at some point it's going to need to be addressed, and then, you know, you're then running around trying to find something that will fix it when you least expect it, or you need to buy a whole new one. As I said, it's quite easy to replace, but I want to, you know, just take a look inside, see how these things work and operate, because I've never seen anybody take one of these things apart, so this is kind of new to me as well. Should also be interesting to see how the other ones are built. So this thread that I'm cleaning here, it really has no intrinsic property at all. This is just purely aesthetics. I'm just cleaning this because I can, but it's not going to enhance, help, or hinder this in any way. It's purely for aesthetics. So that's nice and clean now. So this part will press on the packing material. Let's see if I can use this to just be a bit cheeky and as I said, I didn't want to scratch it, and now I'm scratching it. Let's see, but I just want to see if I can just take off any real high points off this. I should speed up the way the acid operates. stuff is, but when you put my nail onto it, I can't feel anything on this. So it may be like a surface patina as opposed to some obvious corrosion. So although I'm looking like I'm cleaning on the inside of this, I'm not cleaning inside the packing box, just the threads on the inside here, which this will screw into, like so. So again, it's not something that's that critical on the system. So we can just make this look aesthetically nicer. I should use this really, because this will scratch once this one on. So again, this is something that would be hidden under this. So it's like, is it really necessary? No. Is it just something I want to do? Yes. Is it something that you should do? No. It's not a recommendation or anything like that. It's just purely for my own interest. So that's out quite nicely. Let's do the bottom of this, see if that actually makes any change to whatever that surface patina thing. No, it hasn't. So let's do this. You can hear that absolutely smooth, and then this still rough as hell. Let's see this one. The thing about being rough is that every time I wind it up and down, it's just going to take a little bit more out of that packing box. And although it might have that sort of property to kind of recover, that only works so many times and then it stops. But if I can, even if it has the property to recover, if I can just clean this up, then it will just last a hell of a long time. So that looks like it's doing the trick. A little bit more acid on there. Tap on the bottom. See if I can take that high pot off. And that's another thing about this. When it screws up, you can see the threads on this are actually quite tight together, which is probably the reason why that when you turn this, it's quite a few turns before it's fully open. You can see this is much better than it was. All that green is gone, leaving this kind of like black. Still a little bit rough there. Let's do this. So this is you can't see it's not very clear, the packing material in there. It's just like, I don't know what you would call it, it's just like a tube of whatever the material is that they use in there, and then it's crushed down with this thing, and that causes it to expand. So these days, you don't see these so much. They use O-rings. O-rings seem to be a lot better, really. This is really harking back to the old days. I mean, there wasn't silicone or things like that, which are really quite, a change in the plumbing system from back in the 70s. Even the 80s, in fact, when silicone came out, but it certainly wasn't in common use in the 80s. It seemed to be much more common in the 90s, 2000s. Let's give this one more go. So this is what this is supposed to be used for. This is just my innovation. I've got a brain, so I might as well try and use that, as long as it's not a disaster. I mean, after all, as I said, this is only £5 worth. Doing this, if you take my time, and probably your time watching it, doesn't pay for itself at all. It's purely aesthetic, or interest, value, academic, as I'd say. So the last bit of this seems to be rough, so I can take that off. So as I said, it's a metal-to-metal contact, and the seat on this will be conical, so you couldn't really grind it back. It just sits on there, and if you get any sort of material in there, it'll leak. But it's not something that you can fix with, sort of grinding it out, or it's all already set. It's a bit like a bleed valve. Right. Let's see if I can just take that last. I think that's about as much as I can do on this. So I'll do the final once over with the toothbrush. and then we'll wash it down. So we can dry this. So I'll remount this on this, and you can see it's now, it almost falls through. I'm going to just put a tiny bit of silicone grease on the top here. I don't want it in the system at all. So I'm just going to put it up here, around the top, and just drop it in ever so slightly like that. I'll just put a touch on the threads here, and hopefully that will reduce any corrosion. Doesn't seem to be any pressure on there at all. There's still quite a long way to go. Actually, let's just check that out. Actually, I might have that before I can see how long the thread is. So go down to there. Okay, let's do that again. So that's hand tight at the moment, and this is loose. There's a lot of play in there. Let's just tighten this down. That's quite a long way. Oops, far too tight. Far too tight. Let's back that off. Well, that's let's see. It's just there. Let's see. So this is almost there, and it's that far. It's still, you can turn this. You wouldn't expect this to be turned by hand normally. So let's put this just a tad more. Let's get a little bit in there. So this would usually be turned by something like this. And yeah, that is really easy to turn at the moment. So you can see I can still turn it by hand all the way in and all the way back. So it's not like it's grabbing, but there's a certain feel that you get to this. So, and because it's so smooth now, or much smoother than it was, you can tell that it probably wouldn't leak, but yeah, so what I'll do is now I'll take this upstairs, slightly refurbished and in better shape. Right, so I'm back. You can see this hasn't, oh, it has leaked. There's some wetness to that, so let's just, one thing I want to do is, because I don't really want magnetite on the threads if I can avoid it, so I'm just going to go around with this and just see. It's clean, isn't it? So you have to be careful, you don't want anything in the central heating system if you can avoid it, and that's quite good. And then I'm going to take this that's been newly refurbished, as you can see, it's just cleaned with acid, and I'm going to this thing here in the centre. Actually, I think possibly what I need to do is just push this down further like that, and make sure that that screws into the threads first. Actually, it's the same thread, so actually that doesn't matter at all. So let's put this down here. And then with one hand I'm going to put this on. So you only need to, you don't need to put brutal force on this. Oops, he said. So that should be enough, I think. There you go. That's that. Let's put the this thing on here. Oh, that's super soft. Let's just tighten this up a little bit more. In fact, no, let me just leave it in that state where it's super soft. You can, oh no, I can rattle it, so that's too soft. They shouldn't rattle. That's that. That's more like it. Obviously, when you're doing it freehand, like that, you shouldn't be able to rattle it like this, which means that there's slop and play in there. So the packing's obviously extended now, but it's still soft. I mean, I can still move it with my little finger. So let's just do a little bit tighter than that again. So I don't know what that would be, 64th of a turn. It's hugely, there's a very small amount, so still. But one of the things about water I've noticed is that it doesn't need to be hideously tight for it to be watertight. Even though water is an absolutely minute molecule, it's a very tiny molecule, it doesn't need to be, you know, sort of like outrageously tight. So let's just dry that as best we can using a wet cloth. No, that's not really that good. Let's do that again, because what I want it to be, the drier it is, the easier it will be to see whether or not it's wet. So let me there's bugger all water that's been lost in this, probably with that and the amount that's in this, which I bled from the system, you're talking, you know, I mean, this has barely got anything in there. So I doubt very much it's going to need repressurization, but if you decide to do anything crazy like this, then always check your boiler and make sure it's up to proper pressure. So let me stop here and I'll come back and we'll take a look and see if this has actually stopped it leaking. But it's such a small leak that it'd be barely registerable anyway, but it looks a lot better, even though it'll be under this and you won't see it anyway. If I could get it on like so, you won't see it anyway. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll come back with this in a little bit and see if there's any changes. Otherwise, that's it. Hi, here's another one of these items that I found on the central heating. It's the same sort of thing where it's got the packing gland, but you can see this hasn't actually leaked as such, but well, I mean, it hasn't leaked as in a lot of stuff, but obviously during the tests that I generally do on a regular basis, some of the moisture has got through and that's caused corrosion here, but otherwise it's you know, I wouldn't have called this a leaking gland. I would just say this is discoloured. But since I'm in a position to take these out anyway, I might as well and just clean this up, so that, as I was talking about before, where you've got the packing material within the packing gland itself, or the packing box, that it remains in the best condition for future testing. So I'll just use this to help me take off that packing, and since it's so easy to clean in my case, I might as well do it. So that's the top nut, or the packing nut. There's a spindle, and again it's a metal to metal interface. It's the same, exactly the same style as the previous one, and it's very difficult to get through the packing box. So you know that every time I use this would have caused wear. So let's see if I can get it off, which I can. That's quite difficult. So okay, I'll do the same thing again, and use some acid. Use it a little bit closer to where I am. Right, okay. So again, this is white vinegar. More white vinegar. That's better. And a little bit of, let's just put that straight into the vinegar, and this one as well. And then I just put in, just top out with water. It doesn't need high strength vinegar. And I'll just use the toothbrush to do the initial clean, but again I can feel this is quite rough here. So again I'm going to use the least abrasive to see whether I can get rid of most of it using that. If not, I'll use more abrasive one to clean it. So it's very little on this, as you can see. So the packing material's in there. I don't know what it is, can't see it. It doesn't seem to push out when you push it with this. Sometimes it will come through, but not in this particular case. So it's like a little sort of tube or bushing, but when it's compacted it causes it to swell. Or expand, I suppose, in one dimension, while shrinking in the other. So that's a good make. That's done. This looks a little tired. Oops, I don't want that. I'm supposed to be doing that one, aren't I? You can see that this has come off quite quickly. So let's see if I can. I'll do the trick I did before, which was to just run this up and down to catch the high points and knock them off. But because it's curved, it's not going to really scratch it. That feels really quite nice actually. It's very smooth, so I don't think I'll need to use that. Again, this part's going to be in the central heating water, so it's probably going to come into contact with magnetite. And I would imagine also that there'll be like a little airspace in this. I don't know how well that will be maintained really. But as I say, I try and use these on a regular basis just to make sure that they are movable. And sometimes you just get a little bit of moisture coming up, and that's what's happened in this case. It hasn't leaked as such, but it's probably, in that case, if I've seen it, I've tightened down the packing nut. But I haven't sufficiently cleaned these on water, and that's caused corrosion. So I don't know if it's there is like a corrosion inhibitor, which is supposedly in there, and I did put it in quite a few years ago, so it's probably due a top up. So in my view, running my finger now up and down this, it's absolutely smooth. So what you can see there, even though it's discoloured, it's not rough at all, so it's kind of like more like a surface patina. So I'll just wash this down with water. Again, this is not something that you would do as a professional. It's more kind of like a thing you would do as a DIY. But generally speaking, for the cost of this unit and the time it takes for a competent person to replace it, it's hardly worth it. but you know, if you're competent enough to take this off like this and do this, then you're easily competent enough to clean it. So unless it's specific in the sense that it's the only unit that fits, or you know, there's no shop open and you have to do it now, you can see it doesn't take long to do. The shutting down the central heating, i.e. the what do you call it now, the separation of the central heating. So in this particular case, I wasn't too sure that my zone shut off properly, and when I isolated all the radiators, there still seemed to be like almost, I would say, half a litre of water came out, which was more than I was expecting. And so I locked off the boiler as well, as a sort of double precaution. So all zones and the boiler, and it was still, you know, sort of water. So there might be air in one of the radiators, but that's strange because I didn't have that before. So I'm not sure. Actually, I'm just going to put this thing here on this, if I can just see if I can. It doesn't need it. It's just purely aesthetic. Yeah. It's lightened it. So I'm just again going to put a little bit of that on, which is silicone grease. It's not a requirement, oops, but it's something I like to put on. I've got dirty hands, so I need to just clean. So I like to make sure I have clean hands to do this thing, although they don't look that clean. I think it's just very fine. So you only need an absolutely tiny amount. So I want to push this through that because I don't want it on the anywhere near that side if I can avoid it. So I'll just put some on here, then I'll pull it back through like this, and then push it down again. As I put quite a lot on my finger there, I'll put some on here. So you only need an absolute minute, and I'm only putting this on the thread to help protect the thread. It's not for lubrication or anything like that. It's just purely to stop, to interfere with corrosion if it's going to happen. So same with that. Then I'll put this down. It's like I found with the other one, it doesn't seem to bite down really hard. I think it's the lubrication of the silicone grease is just causing it to, so I can still turn this with my, you know, just my hand, which is, you know, you wouldn't be able to do normally. So let me just push this down. Okay, that's done. That will wind in like so, and then I'll push this down and wind the top in, and you can see that this part here, metal to metal contact, this is the packing box. Well, that's not the packing box is inside. You've got the compression nut, or the top nut, and the I would call this the cartridge part, or what some people call the bonnet nut. Okay, time to put that in. Thank you for watching.